For her part, Vice President Kamala Harris addressed her supporters yesterday following her loss.
In a concession speech at her alma mater, Howard University in Washington, D.C., Harris tried to console Democrats. She reaffirmed her commitment to the Constitution and to a peaceful transfer of power and urged her supporters not to give up.
Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power. While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves.
NBC News correspondent Monica Alba joins us from Washington, D.C. Monica, good morning. So Harris packed a lot into a relatively short concession speech. It was about 11 minutes. Tell us more about how she chose to frame this defeat, reassure her supporters. What was the mood like for those who were watching?
Well, it was really significant, Savannah and Joe, that she delivered this speech at the site that she thought if she had won the election, she would be delivering her victory speech at Howard University, which is a sentimental, meaningful place for her as her alma mater that was meant to be a homecoming and then ended up being this place where she formally conceded the race. And she did talk about this in the context of not throwing up your hands, as you saw there, not despairing, but instead she urged her supporters and Americans to mobilize, to organize, and to try to think about how this next phase will really be about the Democratic messaging in contrast to what a Trump second presidency will look like. And she did want to thank her millions of supporters, but was very clear about this message we're going to hear from President Biden as well, that this should be a peaceful transfer of power, that they should accept the election results, and that it is time to move on. But her supporters who were assembled there, some of whom had been there the night before and were sent home, were very emotional, and it was clearly a very poignant moment and message from the vice president.
So, Monica, the current president, Joe Biden, also released a statement yesterday. We will hear from him a little later today. But so far, what are we hearing?
So he did say, and it's something he has said for months, that the best decision he ever made as president was selecting her as his running mate, as his partner in all of this. And he has said it was the first decision he made when he was seeking the nomination and got it in 2020, and quote, "It was the best decision I made. Her story represents the best of America's story, and as she made clear today, I have no doubt that she'll continue writing that story." So we know that the president and the vice president did speak by phone yesterday, and the president congratulated her on, quote, her historic campaign. And of course, they still have a couple of key months here of governing in which they have hinted that they want to do a lot of the work, according to the Harris campaign, to shore up and try to protect some of the things that they put in place ahead of President-elect Trump taking office.
Monica, in that bit we played from the speech yesterday, we heard Harris mention this peaceful transfer of power. What are Biden administration officials telling you about how the transition is going to move forward? And also, are they going to try to get specific things done in the time they have left?
It does sound like that is their intention. And look, this is a legal process that is supposed to be carried out, the transition, and it's something that is really worked on in the minutes following a victory or a concession like what we saw yesterday. So we know that, for instance, the White House Chief of Staff, Jeff Zients, reached out to the people who are leading the Trump transition team right now to try to get some of these logistics going. And we know that for their part, the Trump campaign and transition confirmed that this took place and that during this phone call between President-elect Trump and President Biden, they committed to this transition and this peaceful transfer of power. And the other piece to all of this is that traditionally, when this happens, the president, the sitting president, invites the winner to the White House. So we know President Biden has invited Donald Trump, and it sounds like he has accepted that invitation. And so he may be coming here to Washington in the next couple of days. And this is, again, part of trying to have a, quote, what you see up there, smooth transition. And 8 years ago, this is something that then President Obama did. He invited Donald Trump. He came. But remember, guys, in 2020, that did not take place. There was not a quote-unquote peaceful transfer of power. Instead, Donald Trump, when he lost, refused to accept the election results. So today, President Biden is really going to try to lean into restoring that tone and that contrast with 2020 to say that he wants everything to go as normally and traditionally as possible this time around. Savannah and Joe.
All right. Monica Alba, thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.